this card commands like $30,000, $35,000. Whereas these cards over here are looking about $5,000.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast where we learn how to be a Pokemon master. Today in the studio, we have Ron. Hey Ron, you want to do a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. So, hi everyone. So, my name is Ronald. My day job, I work in the tech industry. And outside of that, I'm a full-time precious cardboard collector. Yeah.
Ooh, precious cardboard collector. Okay, so I know you collect like more than Pokemon cards, but you collect some stuff, but mainly you have most of your collection is Pokemon cards, right?
Yep.
So how did you get into collecting Pokemon cards?
Yeah, so I think for most people our age, right, back in the late 90s when Pokemon was very, very popular, right? I kind of I started collecting back then. Like my parents just buy one pack or two for me here and there. But I think when I was in secondary school, I actually did not collect Pokemon. I collected I was actually very into Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day. So I used to save up my lunch money and buy boxes. And then I think it was back in JC, me and my friend, we saved up money. And then because my friend didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh, then so we just decided, hey, why don't we just go buy Pokemon? Then we went to Serene Center, which was near our school. Then we bought a box of Pokemon and then we opened together. And that was one of the memories I remember the most about Pokemon. And then I think slowly from there, occasionally on and off, I would collect Pokemon cards here and there. But I really, really got back into it back in 2017. So 2017 was 1 year after Pokemon's 20th anniversary, which was also the year that so the year 2016 was Pokemon's 20th anniversary. And that was the year that Pokemon Go came out. And that was when a lot of people came back to Pokemon. Yeah, so I was a bit late to the train in that aspect. But so I came back in 2017, then I started to collect from there and gradually slowly built my collection from there.
So do you actually play the card game or do you just collect?
No, I don't actually play the card game. I played the card game once when I was 9 years old or something. I took part in this very small competition in the card shop near my place. And then I lost in the first round. After that, I never played again after that.
Because for me, I mean, I'm obviously a collector also, but I'm not as big as you. But I don't play the game either. So I'm quite curious as to how many Pokemon card collectors actually play the TCG. I mean you, when I was I can't remember, primary school, I used to play a bit, but I cannot for the life of me remember how to play it. Do you know if there are many collectors out there that play, or how big is the community that actually still play the cards and not just collect?
Yeah, I feel that based on my observation, purely just as a collector, right, the playing community and the collecting community are actually quite segregated. Yeah, so you don't normally see big time collectors who are players also. Yeah, but I think with the popularity of Pokemon and everything, right, the playing community is still very, very large.
Right.
Yeah, in Singapore, I'm sure it's there, but if you go to Japan, for example, right, in the Pokemon centers, everything, right, or even the normal card shops, my guess is that there are people who go on dates and then they play Pokemon cards as one of the activities. Right. Because I mean, Pokemon is something that's very it's not very gender specific or very age specific. Yeah, so it has a very widespread. So I think the community is strong in general. Yeah.
Right. So for Pokemon cards, it's like you said, right? It kind of the global interest in the card collection or whatever kind of took a little dip. But it seems so for me personally, and I think quite a few people I know, the whole entry into Pokemon was the TV series . You watch Pokemon as a kid and then you start playing all the games right? Gen 1, Gen 2. I play every single generation. I think, do you?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
I only play up to Gen 3.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we still play, and the games and all the Pokemon Go and all the whatever spin-offs, I think there's still quite a decent community playing the games, watching the TV shows and whatever. But this card collecting thing really started to really come back, like you said, sometime in 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
And I believe it's cause of some of these pretty big American YouTubers. They started to open packs and they started to basically bid very high prices for certain cards, right? Logan Paul, right?
Yeah,
and even Mr. Beast was into it for a little bit, right? Yeah. So did you think that because you're more I guess, into the collecting part than me for sure. Did you feel like at that point in time, also around I think 2018, 2019 period, especially during the COVID time, right? Suddenly the whole YouTube community of these YouTubers were like buying cards for millions of dollars and stuff. Did you feel like that kind of helped to revive the whole Pokemon card collecting thing?
Yeah, so like just to give you a timeline on what happened, like the collecting scene, right? So 2016 was a huge boom for the collecting scene. So prices went up, a lot of people came back. But between 2016 to 2018, right? 2016 2020, the market actually went down quite a bit. Like the market was flat. Like I remember back then, right? Like when I was trying to sell my boxes that I bought, I think like 2019, the time I was trying to sell boxes I bought in 2017, right? I was only making like $10 or something. There was no like capital appreciation or whatsoever. So prices were quite flat. But like you said, during 2020, right, is when like during the pandemic, right, was when the hobby like just exploded again. Because like people had, like, I mean, if you talk specifically about the US, right, they have a lot of like the stimulus checks. So there was a flush of money, people with a lot of time and nothing to do, and then they just go to their mom's wardrobe and say, hey, look, maybe I got some Pokemon cards, and they just check it out, and then they do more research and they get back to the hobby, and then you multiply this by like millions of people, and maybe even like, and eventually you hit someone that has a lot of influence who also did the same thing. And then after all you need is like one or two people like Logan Paul or whatnot, right, to get into the hobby, right? And then it suddenly becomes like mainstream, like collecting, like from 2017 till now, right? Collecting Pokemon and investing in Pokemon has become a lot more mainstream compared to back in the day.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the way you're talking about it, it feels like I'm talking to an investor and like a trader and not a, because like this is technically supposed to be a hobby, a fun thing, but you're talking about it like, wow, stimulus checks, the market is flat, kind of things like the terms that you hear when you watch like stock videos and stuff. So like for you, right, do you do it because you love like the cards, you love the art, or are you actually trying to kind of flip and make some profit out of this as well?
Yeah, so I would say like initially at the start, right, I did it purely out of like my passion and love for Pokemon. But I think as time went by, right, like when you see the value of your cards start to go up and the money you can make, right, is personally for me I find it very difficult to separate the two at this point. Like chasing it, like for Pokemon cards, right, to me it's a mixture of both nostalgia, love, passion, and also part of it's investing, because like the money you put in to get the certain cards that, like the money I put in to get the cards that I want, back in the day, it's like maybe under $100, I can just buy the card, okay, whatever, just buy it, just keep, I'm happy. But now you're talking about like $1,000, that kind of thing, then like you really have to think twice about, okay, if I buy this $1,000 card, right, then do I just keep it as part of my collection, then treat it as an expense and write it off? Or do I treat it as okay, if I spend $1,000 now, $1,000 now, maybe in 5-10 years, I can sell it for $2,000. So like you could say that like the monetary aspect of Pokemon cards has kind of like, I won't say ruined the hobby for me, but it changed the way I view the hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is in some way also like a way to generate like revenue, wealth or whatever, so that you can buy more cards. Okay, so now that we're talking about essentially the cards as more of a vehicle to generate income rather than purely like a hobby, I like this artwork kind of thing, right? So I'm quite curious as to your opinion as to how do you pick what to collect such that it has the most upside. So for example, right, if we're talking about stuff that we can invest in, say property, for example, like the analyst will tell you, you have to look at the price per square foot, the developer, and there's some criteria to look at and then like for stocks, like let's say you're a value investor, you got to look at your PE ratio, your EBITDA to see, like upside and then whatever, right? And then and stuff like that. So for like a Pokemon card, right, it's kind of similar because it's a, can you call it an asset class? I guess,
yeah,
right? Commodities, So asset class, and like in this asset class, there are different Pokemons, there are different like releases, you know, different like series, different boxes. So for every release, every box, every card, what is for you like your criteria to determine, this is a good buy, it has how much percent upside, you know, how do you determine this?
Yeah, so I tend to look at it like, so my framework in mind, the framework that I have is quite simple. So we go back to economics 101, supply and demand.
Nice.
Okay? So I split it up in supply and demand. So let's talk about the supply side first. So in Pokemon, there's a saying older, rarer, minter, better. Okay,
sorry, okay, repeat.
Yeah.
Older,
rarer,
minter, better. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So you're talking about like for example, maybe like you talk about your first edition base set. That's a very old set. It's a very rare set. And to get cards in that set that are in mint condition is very difficult. So like your first edition base set hits all the criteria of like from a supply perspective, it's a good investment. So for example, let's say, right, if I look at just to put a comparison, first edition base set Charizard and normal base set Charizard. Okay, so like I mentioned just now, first edition base set Charizard, older, rarer, minter, therefore it's better. Whereas your base set Charizard is old, but it's not rare. Okay, base set is very, very common. Like if you want to buy like a base set Charizard in like not mint condition, right, you can easily buy for under maybe $100 or so. So it's actually, there's a lot of it out there because they really printed like a crap ton of it. Yeah, and then the minter part, well, if you can find a base set Charizard non-first edition that is in like mint condition, you can actually get quite a good price for it. But then it goes back to the argument that it doesn't really hit all the three criteria. So from a supply side perspective, right, first edition is better than base set.
Right.
Okay, so that's supply. So for demand side, right, demand side is a lot more subjective.
Right, correct.
Okay, so if you think of it like your stock markets, right, like you can only quantify so many factors as to determine whether or not one person want to buy a stock.
Right.
Yeah. So for Pokemon, the thing I like to look at is maybe number one is what Pokemon is featured in the artwork. So if it's a very popular Pokemon, like Charizard, for example, yeah, you can't get enough Charizard. So that one is like one criteria: Charizard, Pikachu, maybe Eevee or whatnot. Then the next thing I look at is the artwork. So if the artwork is good, then more often than not, if you look at the full art, like Pokemon card, right, compared to a non-full art, right, you obviously go for the full art, right, because the artwork is so much more beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. Then these are the kind of like the two factors I look at. The last factor is really based on your own market research. Like you have to keep your finger on the pulse of the hobby. So to kind of know like what's in season. Because right now Japanese modern cards are in season now, so the prices are going all over the place. But like 2 years ago during the pandemic, it was actually English modern that was
in season.
Very in season. Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of have to do your market research. So if I look at two things, like these two things together, supply and demand, right, I tend to look at supply as like the supply part as downside protection. Because so if you go for cards that fit the supply criteria, right, like based on your supply demand curve, right, you can only like your supply can only go so low before the price will hit a certain point. And if you think about it logically, right, like if you have a very rare card, then all you need to find is just one guy who really wants it, and he will pay you. You can just quote whatever price you want, and he has no choice to take it. Yeah. So supply side is downside protection, whereas the demand factors, right, are more, you're looking for more upside growth, Yeah. But let's say the demand side, you have to be actively participating in the hobby. If not, you probably like get burned also, Yeah.
Right, because you don't understand the market, right?
Correct,
you don't talk to enough people to know like what's the demand like and things like that. So every couple of months, Pokemon will release like a new set, whether it's like an English set or Japanese set or whatsoever. So when a new set is released, how do you decide if you want to invest in it?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this one is like a bit tricky. Okay. So the problem normally personally for me, I prefer to invest in Japanese cards. Not based on the monetary aspect, but I just feel that Japanese cards, the quality is higher. And like Pokemon is originally a Japanese game. So by right, Japanese is the original language and English is the foreign language. Yeah, so that's why I tend to look at Japanese sets more.
When you say quality is better, do you mean like the print quality or like what do you mean?
Yeah, so like the print quality is not only better, but like on your holo foil cards, right, the foil quality is a lot better than the English one. The English ones tend to use like very generic foil patterning. Foil patterns. Yeah, so but then for the Japanese ones, they put a lot more effort to make the foiling more intricate, more specific to each card. Yeah.
I see. So like for when a new set is launched, then I guess there are many factors to consider lah, and it's not just about supply and demand anymore, because it's like something like a new IPO, right? You don't know whether to buy or not. But after I guess after a couple of months, when people are trading, buying and selling, then you get a better idea of what the demand is like. Then then you decide if you want to get in, or how does it work?
Yeah. So normally, like the first most important criteria I look at is whether or not there is a big chase card in the set. So one framework that...
Sorry, when you say chase card, right? Okay, can you like elaborate?
Yeah, sorry. So by chase card, I mean like a very popular card in a set. So that set can be like Charizard in a very nice artwork, for example. Like a popular Pokemon in a very nice artwork that you kind of know that people will really like it. Yeah, so that's... I feel like that's the most important thing. Then there's another framework that I recently came across from another YouTuber. So essentially what it looks at is you look at the value of the top 10 cards of the set. And then after you compare it with the box value. And then you do that across many sets, right? And then you can kind of get a gauge of like which set has the most sort of like the most worth it ratio. So you want to have a top 10, like the top 10 cards in the set to be very high, but the value of the box is very low. So you want that ratio to be on the side where the box is lower lah. So that is one way to look at it as well. Another thing that I take into consideration is also the news coming from like the official news.
Right.
So like sometimes they will announce that they are going to keep printing the card, keep printing the set. You know, sometimes they will just not say anything. So the big problem with Japanese Modern right now is that like Pokemon Japan has taken a very active stance on trying to meet the market supply. So last time they normally print the sets. Maybe they will print a certain number, or they print up to a certain date, then they stop. But right now, because the demand is so high, right, that the moment they release their first wave is immediately absorbed by the market. So what they did was that they took an active stance to keep printing. Now that brings in an issue, right? Like what I mentioned just now, supply and demand. Like you want to invest in something, right? But then there's like
oversupply.
There's a risk of oversupply.
Right.
Put it that way. So then it becomes a little bit more like dangerous in a way. Yeah, so that's one more factor. And the last thing I look at is that whether or not the set is a specialty set. Yeah, so for the recent Pokemon Japan, right, they recently released this set called 151. So it basically just commemorates the first 151 Pokemon from the first generation. So that set is definitely like, to me, is a definite must get. Not financial advice, but to me, I went to get quite a few like boxes of it because I felt that that box definitely hit a nostalgia trigger in me. Like, so I was
checks the boxes.
Yeah, it checks the boxes. So to me, it's just you know what, just get it. I don't care if it goes out or go down. I like it. I just get it. Yeah,
which is how I guess it starts for most collectors lah. Because even though we went like into a deep rabbit hole of like analyzing what the upsides and downsides of like investing in like the Pokemon cards, viewing it as an asset class, like for most people they got into it because they have a favorite Pokemon and they want to collect whatever, right? So for you, right, when you first began, what did you collect? And now that you are sort of seeing it as almost like an asset class wealth growth tool, what do you collect?
Yeah, so back in the day, like when I first started collecting again back in 2017, right? Honestly, I didn't have like any particular thing in mind. I just kind of saw whatever was nice. Then I just buy, just keep low. Then like for me, I think the mentality I had back then was like, you know, your card binder, right? Like got 9 pages, 9 slots aside, right?
Yeah.
So for me, what I did was I tried to complete like sets of 18 cards, so I can like flip one page, then it looks very nice.
Right.
So that was kind of like the goal I had in mind. So from there, right, I kind of I started to collect like this thing called full art rares from one of the sets from the XY generation. Yeah, so I collected those. I collected all the full arts, and then after that, gradually, this set that featured Shining Pokemon came out in Japan. Then I just collected that set, and then after that, gradually, like as more things came out, I kind of got a better idea of what I wanted to collect.
Right.
Yeah, and then like in 2020, not saying in 2020, but in late 2019, I discovered this term called trophy cards. Okay, so trophy cards are essentially your cards that are won in tournaments. And because they are won in tournaments, right, the distribution and supply of them is very low. So it's not only difficult to get, but there's not a lot of them out there. So I came across this term now called trophy cards. So I did a lot of research on it, blah, blah, blah. And then like towards the end of 2019, me and my friend, we actually bought our first trophy card together. Like back then it was like $3,000. We were like, are we out of our minds spending $3,000 on one card? Yeah. So we went to buy like a Japanese trophy card and then we bought it. It came at the end of 2019. And then after that, ever since then, right, I started to like kind of steer my collection towards trophy cards. So like most of the things I buy nowadays, right, I will just buy and then I'll hold and then I'll flip it just to get the money back and then eventually flip it back into trophy cards.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So your end goal is to buy trophy cards.
Yeah, correct.
Everything else is just a way for you to generate more money so that you can reinvest that money into trophy cards because that is your goal. Like,
yeah,
you want.
Correct.
If I'm not wrong, right, currently one of the most expensive Pokemon card in existence is a trophy card, right? The Illustrator Pikachu.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how? I mean, I believe the last valuation of it was like $5 million plus or something like that.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So the Pikachu Illustrator is not a trophy card per se, in the sense that you didn't win it in a tournament. If I remember correctly, it was like a art illustration contest or something like that.
Right, correct.
Yeah, so but you can argue that it's like a trophy card tier kind of card. So I think like the last sold was I think maybe 650K. So that 5 million figure, right, is just the valuation figure. Yeah, I can't remember if Logan Paul has the PSA 10 version.
Because there is only one mint condition one, right? Something like that.
There are a few. But it's like very, very... Like, I think the PSA 10 for Pikachu Illustrator, maybe 5 or 10 around out there. I can't remember exactly the numbers. Yeah, but it's
quite rare lah.
It's quite rare lah.
Is that still the most expensive card in existence?
For this for Pokemon hobby, yes, it's the most expensive card. Like, so recently, right? I think around in May lah. There's this card called the Pikachu Snap. Okay, so just to give a background, what a Snap card is. So back in the day, there was this game called Pokemon Snap or something, right? Yeah, then like basically you just go around taking pictures of Pokemon. So in Japan, they had a competition of basically got kids to just submit the photos that they took of the Pokemon in the game. So then what happens was that they picked a couple of winners, and then I can't remember how many winners they picked, but essentially for each winner got 20 copies. They got their photos turned into Pokemon cards. And then each winner got 20 copies of the card. And then aside from there, right, there's no other distribution of the card. Yeah, so this Pikachu Snap, right, recently sold for $300,000 to a collector in the Middle East. Yeah, so that transaction was if I remember correctly, it was the first recorded transaction of that card in like the history of Pokemon. Yeah, and like the funny thing was that I actually met the guys who helped to middleman the deal. Yeah, and they were like posting them cryptic things on like Instagram. I was like, what are you guys talking about? And then after that, then like a few weeks later, then I saw that the deal went through. I was like, oh shit, then I was like, they were in Japan the same time as me when the deal happened. Yeah, so I would say that the 300,000 Pikachu Snap one is probably the second highest. And it's more interesting because the Illustrator has been in the limelight for a very long time already. Yeah, and then suddenly out of nowhere, right, the Pikachu Snap appears. And this card has never been seen like actual copy before ever until that point. Yeah.
Oh, so actually, like the highest transacted price for a card is not in the millions of dollars. Is it? Because you mentioned 650K.
Yeah, don't call me on this, but I don't think it's in the millions lah for a single card.
I see.
Yeah.
But like for those like, full base set kind of thing, it can go for a couple million.
Yeah, I mean if you do a big deal, it definitely can get into the millions one lah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your collection now, right? Okay. So like as of today, right, like all of the Pokemon cards that you own, what is the current range of valuation? What's the valuation of your current collection?
Right, I would conservatively probably put between 150 to 200K.
conservatively. So like if you were being like bullish, if you were being like a not conservative,
bullish, maybe 200, 250 around there.
Okay, so about $250,000.
Yeah.
So then the question is, right, how much in terms of like expenditure, right? Like the money you pay, like from the beginning when you started collecting until today, right?
Yeah.
How much have you spent on Pokemon cards?
Spend
Yeah, so like your capital outlay.
Outlay probably maybe 100K have. Yeah, I can't remember the exact figures lah.
Okay, so like the value like that you have now, which is like $250,000 worth of Pokemon cards, is you didn't spend that amount lah. So like all your trading, flipping, basically got you like 150% gain.
I mean like the figures I gave you, right, it's just a rough ballpark because like there are a lot of things in my collection that I don't like actively keep track the value of, like especially those in my binders, I don't keep track the value of it. Yeah, but the graded one I sort of do lah. So I base my collection value based on the value of my graded cards. So like I got a lot of stuff in my binders that I don't evaluate. But that being said, right, I know of people in the community that like they've flipped up to 7 figures. Yeah, just because they were more active in the hobby.
Flip the cards in like the total gains.
Yeah, total gains got 7 figures.
Over $1 million lah.
Yeah. So,
that's insane. So do you have a course teaching people how to flip?
No.
Okay. Start a course. I'll pay you money for it.
Wow, really?
Okay. I mean, if people can teach stock investing, why can't you? Okay, I mean, I don't know.
That's a good point, yeah.
If you're watching this and you want to learn how to flip Pokemon cards, leave a comment in the comment section. I'll ask Ron, okay? So let's talk about your most expensive card. So I know you brought some of your most prized cards today. Let's take a look at some of them. What is your current most expensive card in the collection? Yeah,
so currently my most expensive card in the collection would be these 2 cards over here. So these are trophy cards like I spoke about earlier. So this one is called the Mew Victory Orb, and this one is called the Pikachu Victory Ring. So these cards were won in tournaments back in the day, and the supply of these cards are probably under 200 each. Yeah, so you can think of it as like there were like regional tournaments that were conducted in Japan back in the day lah. So the distribution of these cards ran from between 2003 to 2006. Yeah, so these 2 cards are also like so the other cards below here, right? Yeah, these 2 cards are kind of like the counterparts of these cards.
Okay.
Yeah, so like for example, if you see the ring, the Pikachu Victory Ring, right, you can see that Pikachu is carrying a ring.
Right.
Yeah, and then after that, if you see this one over here, right, yeah, you can see it's also a ring.
That's the ring.
Yeah,
it's
so
the ring that he's carrying.
Correct. So the interesting thing about this is like, so the conversation we had about supply and demand again, right? The supply of these cards are almost the same, but this card commands like $30,000, $35,000, whereas these cards over here are looking about $5,000. So it's almost
7 times difference.
Yeah, 7 to 6 times difference in value, even though the print run is the same. And the reason why this one is so much more valuable is, I think, in my opinion lah, it's purely because it has a nicer artwork and it comes in a much nicer display. Yeah, and then people peg it higher value lah. Yeah, so I would say like these 4 cards are like my most prized cards in my collection. Yeah,
nice.
I started this in 2020 and it took me 3 years to get this last one. Yeah, this the Mew Victory. I recently got it in an auction. Yeah, but I could have finished it in the first year, but I don't know why things just got in the way and it took me a bit longer than expected lah. Yeah.
Do you usually so basically like you have like a general valuation of all these cards and like even all your slabs and whatever. When you want to see how much the company is valued at, there's a research tool. You want to see how much a stock is worth, you go to the broker. So for Pokemon cards, right, where do you go to research how much is the valuation of a card?
So like in recent years, there's been a lot of like tools online that came out lah. But I think the most standard one is just go on eBay. Yeah, just eBay, go to type the search term, go to sold listings, and then you can find whatever has been sold. Then there's another place called PWCC. So essentially they are an auction house specifically for trading cards. And they used to be on eBay lah, but some things happened and they did their own thing. So PWCC also has a very like extensive record on like the price history of a lot of different cards. So and those are more for graded cards. Whereas for like the raw cards, right? Like those are not graded, right? For English side, there's a website called TCG Player. You can just go and roughly see like all the market prices of everything. And then for Japan side one, right, there's a new one that came out that was pretty good. I think it's called Cha or something like that. Yeah, they basically scalp like all the big Japanese card shops. And then they also scalp this website called Mercari, which is the Japanese equivalent of Carousel.
Okay.
So yeah, so they scalp the websites and then they make the price charts and everything. Yeah. So normally I go to those places to pack the market value.
It's quite a lot of effort to do all the research and things like that lah. It's not just like show you buy card then you suddenly make money lah. It's actually quite a lot of effort. So,
Yeah.
So I think for some of our viewers or listeners that haven't really started collecting cards, I guess generally there are what we call graded cards and non-graded cards, right? So like all the stuff that you have brought today, they're all graded lah. They are like in this plastic
It's plastic
containment unit, and it is being sort of like the quality of the card is being graded by an organization. How about, can you share more about that actually? So like grading.
Yeah.
I most organizations that do grading, they grade all sorts of cards lah. As long as it's a cardboard, they grade it lah. So how does grading work in Pokemon, and does grading always increase the value of a card?
Yeah. So in general, there are 3 big grading companies for trading cards. So the first one is called PSA. So it means a Professional Sports Authenticator. Then another one is called BGS. I don't remember what they stand for.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third one that only appeared in the recent couple of years is called CGC. Yeah, so these are the big 3 in the grading scene. So there are a lot of other small graders, but honestly, if you grade with those small graders, like you're a waste of time. It's a waste of time because when people search for graded cards online, right, you need to think of what they're going to search. Right. They're going to search like first edition base set Charizard. Most of the time, they'll search PSA 10. Okay, they won't search like small grading like ABC 10 or DEF 10. They will search PSA 10, BGS 10, and then CGC 10. Yeah, so a lot of these cards, right? So like how the grading process works is that you identify your the company you want to grade with. You can either choose to send the cards directly yourself, or you can go through a middleman. So in Singapore, like the recent couple of years, there are a lot of middlemen that popped up. So you can choose which one to send it to, and then after you send it to, right, you probably have to pay a fee, 35, I think it's about $35 in Singapore. Yeah, and then after that, depending on, so after you grade it, right, sometimes what happens is that they upcharge you because they claim that you under-declare the value of the card. So then they will upcharge you. If your card is like $1,000, right, then you go and under-declare it as like $100, right, they'll upcharge you, I don't know how much, but sometimes the upcharge can be quite a lot. Yeah, and then after that, you probably wait 2 months, and then you can get your card back, and then hopefully you get a 10. So to your question about whether or not grading a card is always worth it, right? Most of the time, right, actually the answer is no. It's not worth it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the issue is that these days, right, in order for because the market is so optimized right now, right? In order for you to make money grading your card, right, your card must be a PSA 10. It must not PSA 10, but it must grade 10, which is basically like almost the highest grade.
So the grading is like 1 to 10.
Yeah, the grading is on a 1 to 10. Yeah, just to simplify it, there's some levels above 10, like they call it BGS Black Label, Becker Black Label, and CGC also has their own Black Label, but let's not get into that. Okay. Yeah, but essentially the grading scale is from 1 to 10. Yeah, most of the time, most cards are, if you get anything less than a 10, right, like if you get a 9, for example, right, there are instances where like a PSA 9 card, a graded card, will sell for the same value as a ungraded near mint copy. Yeah, especially this is very, very much more apparent in like cards where there's a huge abundance of supply. So you're talking about modern cards. Yeah, so that's why like grading is not always a surefire win. And also when you grade the cards, right, like don't grade like junk cards they have no value. Like the market value of the card is like $5, right? Then you go and grade. You spend like $35 to grade a $5 card. And then after when you sell it, right, you sell it for $10. Like, wow, waste money.
Most of your cards are graded, right? So why do you grade them?
Yeah, because I feel that, so back then when I graded most of these cards, right, firstly I knew, I checked the card, I made sure that they will get a 10. And then I will go and grade them.
How can you be sure though?
Oh, the one you really have to like just
okay. Yeah, let's not go into it.
put a light and inspect the card.
it's like you go to those pawn shops and then like the guy put the magnifying glass, see the gold ring. It's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, same thing.
So it is a commodity. Okay, so for some of the people who want to get into like Pokemon TCG collecting, but just they don't know where to start, what would your recommendation be? How do you start collecting Pokemon TCG?
Right. So what I like to tell most people is this lah. Okay, so when you are like a completely green collector, right, you just go and collect whatever the hell you want. Like you start from there, collect what you love. Like really, the saying that collect what you love is timeless. Just collect what you love, and then from there, right, you will gradually, like if you really love the hobby, right, from there you will gradually start to learn more and have a deeper understanding of, you know, the type of cards and stuff like that. Then after that, right, then maybe then, right, you can consider moving into like taking it as a more of an investment kind of thing. Yeah, but I feel that always start collecting cards from a position of passion, not for money. Because like there's another point that I like to say also, because at the end of the day, right, all of these things you see here, right, are just pieces of paper.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So you imagine a hypothetical situation one day, right? Okay, first edition base set is a very popular set. Okay, one day Pokemon company, the CEO just wakes up one day, you know what? I think my company can make a lot of money if I just reprint first edition base set. They're just going to print it. And then what's going to happen? Your 6-figure card goes to 0-figure card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really purely on a whim of... So your entire value of your hobby, right, is determined by one company. Whereas if you think of it like, maybe if you think of it like from the stocks or equity point, right, like you invest in a company, at least you have regulatory bodies to protect you as an investor. This one don't have. You protect your own self. Like one day Pokemon just decides to print everything to the ground, right? You're screwed already lah. So you have to keep that in mind lah.
Right. Or one of those things that, you know, like one day, some of the people who run the company come out to be like doing some unethical thing, and then like the value will also drop lah, right? Yeah. Okay. Basically, it's a very, very unsafe asset class.
Yes. There's
definitely no upside. There's like some upside but no real downside protection. Okay, so actually I have a funny question for you. Just now, right, you say, I literally just thought of this. Just now you say, okay, generally the guiding principle of like buying cards that have potential upside and value is minter better, older better, and rarer better, right? Okay, so I ask you, today, right, I get a pretty expensive, so like I would think that like one of those like first edition Charizard things, like a base set, would be quite pricey, a couple of $1,000 at least, probably 5 figures or whatever. And most of them out there, I believe, would be in the range of like grade 5 to grade 10. Have you ever seen any grade 1 or grade grade? How do you even get a grade 1? Is there a grade 0?
There's no grade 0, but there's grade 1. So like, okay, this is the funny thing. Like there are people who try to collect grade 1. So it's like they just get the most like scratched up, banged up cards, and then they just send it for grading. So the challenge, I know people who collect like grade 1 to grade 10. So like the challenge is actually between like 1 to 5. Like how damaged must the card be to hit 2, hit 3, hit 4, hit 5?
So people actually collect like 1, 2, 0, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like the range for that card.
Yeah, I mean, like most of these people when they collect those, I think they collect for fun lah. They don't really think about the monetary value.
Because right. But basically, you say older better, minter better, and rarer better. Yeah. If it doesn't fulfill the minter condition, it is very old and very unmint. So it's like the other way.
Right.
So like a PSA 1, like very, very scrunched up card, does it have more value than those that have a lot of supply? Like for example, like I would believe like grade 6, grade 7 is quite very common, but a grade 1 is quite rare.
Yeah.
So would a grade 1 card, which is supposedly valued lower than a grade 6 card, be, more expensive?
So this trend that you mentioned is actually very apparent in the very old school Japanese trophy cards. So I mean, because the value of these cards are so high, right? A lot of the PSA 10, PSA 9 copies have already been flushed out of the market. So all of them have been graded and everything. So what you're going to see is that a lot of these cards in the market a lot is a term lah. It's like saying there's some left, but there's actually like almost none left. But whenever they do appear in the market, right, more often than not, they are in like pretty bad condition. So what actually happens is that so in PSA, when you send cards for grading, right, you can choose to have it graded based on the condition. So you get 1 to 10, or you can choose to have it what we call authenticated. So basically it's just to verify the card is real. They don't grade the condition, they don't grade nothing. So a lot of these ungraded trophy cards that are not in the best conditions, right? What a lot of these collectors do is that they just send it in for authentication. So when it comes out on the slab, right, like instead of seeing like the 10 here, right, it will just be authentic. Yeah. So in a way, like if you think about it, like if let's say you're trying to buy a very rare card, right, would you buy a card that has a label that says PSA 1 poor, or would you rather buy a card that says authentic? I think I'd rather just buy the card that says authentic. I just want to live in denial that the card is in bad condition. I just want to see, okay, authentic, done. Because the label sort of adds a certain degree of intrinsic value to the card.
Right, because like the word poor there
yes, correct. Yeah, it doesn't look great.
You know what? After this podcast, right, I'm gonna go out and search for PSA 1 cards. That will be my new thing. But okay. But anyways, so thank you for sharing your collection with us. And for some of the people who might, have gotten inspired to collect cards and stuff like that, and they don't know where to start, they don't know where to look, they need somebody to guide them. Do you have anywhere that some people can connect with you to see your collection and maybe ask you some questions and stuff?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Sleepy Dark Magician. Yeah. So if you have any questions about collecting and stuff like that, just follow me and drop me a DM lah. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, thanks Ron for coming in today. And I will talk more later about collecting cards. Okay. Thank you, and see you next time on the One Day at a Time podcast. Peace.